Good evening, all. Welcome to the October 9th, 2023 edition of the Town of Garner Planning Commission. Happy to be here tonight. I hope everyone is well. Go ahead and do roll call, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. I will call the roll. Gina Avent.
Here.
John Blasco.
Here.
Ralph Carson.
Here.
Philip Jefferson.
Here.
Jehan Hodges could not be here in person tonight, so I will call Sherry Phillips.
Here.
And Michael Voiland.
Here.
That's 6 members present.
All right, thank you. There was some discussion about Ms. Hodges may joining us remotely. I guess I will make a motion to allow Ms. Hodges to, who is physically absent, to participate in the meeting by electronic means, including participation in deliberations, making motions, and voting pursuant to Rule 3 of the Planning Commission Rules of Procedures, if she does by chance join us at some point tonight.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion prior to voting?
Okay, I will call the vote.
Question.
Oh, sorry.
The reason for her tardiness, is she going to be in a quiet area where her attendance won't be disruptive to the group?
That I would say is unknown at this point. Yeah, I don't know where she'll be at.
She would be able to mute herself unless she's speaking, so that we would just ask her to do that.
All right.
All right, I will call the vote. Gina Avent.
Nay.
John Blasco.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Nay.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Sherry Phillips.
Aye.
Michael Voiland.
Nay.
That's 3 and 3. So she will not be able to participate.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, moving on. Do we have a volunteer for a invocation or other such form of
I'll do it. Bow our heads. Thank you for the day that you provided for us, with the opportunity for us to work and do the business of the town of Garner, working for our residents and for the betterment of our community. We ask that we are open to listening and hearing this evening and making the best decisions for our town and for our residents. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make that motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second.
Okay, I will call the vote. Gina Avent.
Aye.
John Blasco.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Sherry Phillips.
Aye.
And Michael Voiland.
Aye.
And that's unanimous.
Thank you much. The minutes from our previous meeting, any discussion, comments, edits?
I had one item at number 5. The motion that was seconded, I'm not sure if that meant seconded by me or Mrs. Phillips. It says Mr. Phillips.
Oh, I apologize. I will go back and clarify that.
All right. Unless there's anything else, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I will call the vote.
Second? We have a motion and a second.
Gina Avent.
Aye.
John Blasco.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Jehan Hodges. I'm sorry, she's not here tonight. Sherry Phillips.
Aye.
And Michael Voiland.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
All right, thank you much. Before we get into our old and new business, I will remind those in attendance that the Planning Commission is not a scheduled public hearing. However, we do value opinions and comments, so we will allow some opportunity to speak. The Meeting will be conducted in the following order for each agenda item. We'll have staff overview of the request. We'll have a presentation by the applicant and others in support, comments by speakers in opposition to the request. We'll have questions from the commission, and then comments and vote by the commission. With that, we ask that those who are in attendance to speak for or against the project limit their comments to 10 minutes, and please don't be repetitive. And please be respectful of everyone's role and opinions. With that, we appreciate it and move on to item number CZMP 2206, Ackerman Road.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is CZMP 2206, Ackerman Road. The applicant was Construction Masters LLC, and the location is 0 Ackerman Road. The tract size is approximately 7.57 acres, and this is a master sketch plan with written conditions. I will note that this site was previously zoned R40. As of the townwide rezoning, this is now an RA zoned property. And the request is to rezone to R9 under the previous ordinance, conditional district C255, not to exceed 21 single-family detached dwelling units. There are zoning conditions proposed that restrict the range of permissible uses and to propose some architectural conditions. So the site is located off of Ackerman Road between the Ridgemore subdivision and Bingham Station subdivision. You can see Bryan Road Elementary just south of the site. Here is a street view of the current conditions of the site and the adjacent land use and zoning. So to the north is RA, single family. To the south is R4 and vacant. To the east is that Ridgemore subdivision, which is currently zoned R4, and to the west is Bingham Station, which is also currently zoned R4. Here is a history of the zoning. Most recently, you can see the conditional use zoning of 2017 by the Hopper communities along Bryan Road for a R40 to R9 subdivision, and a conditional use district of 2018 submitted by Bass, Nixon, and Kennedy along Ackerman Road for the single-family residential planned residential development. The existing zoning. So as of the townwide rezoning last summer, it is now zoned rural agricultural. So the RA district is primarily to accommodate agriculture, silviculture, and rural residential, which is large lot single-family residential. Other typical uses are found in rural areas, including utility structures and other compatible uses. And properties zoned RA are typically in areas outside of the corporate limits where there's limited public water and sewer. So the permitted use table, the applicant has proposed some zoning conditions, including limiting the uses to only single-family detached and single-family residential subdivision. All single-family homes shall have at least a 2-car garage, and garage doors shall have carriage hardware and windows. Accent light fixtures, a minimum of 8 inches wide or 8 inches tall, would be required above all single-family garage doors. If masonry is not the predominant single-family first floor finish, greater than 50%, then front elevations will have at least 2 types of fiber cement siding. Lap shake or board and batten are examples of that. No vinyl siding would be allowed for the single-family homes, and at a minimum, all single-family homes will have at least a 24-inch stone or masonry water table on the front facade. Each single-family home must have a masonry foundation with crawl space, not including the garage, turn-down slab or stem wall slab foundation with a minimum height of 12 inches with brick or stone veneer on front and sides. Single-family front elevations with cantilever projection would include cosmetic brackets or shelf supports directly beneath it. All single-family homes shall have a minimum of 8-inch eaves on the front and rear facade with a minimum of 8-inch roof overhangs on all sides. An outdoor deck, patio, screen porch, a minimum of 100 square feet is required as part of all single-family homes. A projecting covered front porch minimum of 20 square feet would be provided. There will be at least one trimmed window per habitable floor, and window trim will be a minimum of a 1x4 board, and no more than 21 single-family homes would be constructed on the property. This property does fall in with the Lower Swift Creek Overlay District, which has additional developmental standards. Those are explained in Article 5.14 of the ordinance, but the maximum impervious surface coverage for new residential projects would be limited to 30% total surface area. Overall neighborhood character, Ackerman Road is a secondary road with connection to White Oak Road, which is a major corridor and a significant amount of daily traffic. The area has seen a good amount of residential development in the last few years and is currently experiencing a high demand of high-density residential growth. The area is supported by Bryan Road Elementary and South Garner High School and White Oak Shopping Center. This project previously proposed 35 residential dwelling units. This would now be 21 residential dwelling units, and it did not require a TIA, but we did provide some traffic counts for previous years here. Staff identified 52 properties within the notification radius, and there was 3 neighborhood meetings held. So the first was the required neighborhood meeting, which was held in February of 2022. There was a second meeting held after the public hearing in January of this year, and then a third meeting held in February as well. And the full meeting summaries should be provided in your agenda packet. This is the proposed master plan. So as you can see, there is a stream that bisects the site. To the north, there are some single-family lots proposed on this street that stubs here with a hammerhead. And then in the south, there is another section of single-family residential that connects into Hazy Hills in Ridgemore, and then into Steam Engine Way in Bingham Station. You can see the SCM proposed to the south, and the 2 mailbox locations and a pedestrian bridge across the stream. Single-family detached in R9 has a minimum lot width of 60 feet, a minimum lot area of 9,000 square feet. The front setback is 25, the side setback is 6 or 15 combined, the rear setback is 20, the corner side is 20, and the maximum building height is 35 feet. Tree canopy cover is a sliding scale from 18 to 20%. There is no required buffer between single family and adjacent single family, based on the old ordinance, which had a use table that determined what the buffers would be. And there is a street buffer along Ackerman Road. Street trees would be provided approximately every 40 feet along roadways and internal drives. Oak required is 10%, which is approximately 0.76 acres, and the anticipated is 11% at 0.84 acres. So open space areas will be owned and maintained by an HOA and will be met with qualifying conservation areas and additional passive recreation pockets. The lighting will meet UDO requirements. The site will be serviced by City of Raleigh water and sewer infrastructure, and water will connect and extend from existing lines on Ackerman Road. Sewer will be extended from adjacent Bingham Station and Ridgemore subdivisions per Raleigh water policy. There are no FEMA-designated floodplains. However, there is a buffer stream and associated wetlands that run through the center of the site. And there is one SCM proposed that will meet our UDO requirements for the 1, 10, and 25-year storm events. The infrastructure that will be reviewed again with preliminary plat are the lighting and for street and common areas, which will meet UDO regulations, the stormwater management devices, the water lines and hydrant spacing, and all landscaping and parking will be re-verified at that time. So your charge here tonight is to determine plan consistency with the 3 plans listed here. So land use map, this can be considered consistent. because it is currently medium density residential. So that includes single family, triplex, quadplex, and townhouse styles with no less than 2.5 or more than 5 units per acre. It encourages context-sensitive residential uses that preserve and enhance the culture of adjacent and residential communities. So this zoning request can be considered consistent with both use and density. And this was corrected in your staff report. The town's transportation plan calls for sidewalks along Ackerman Road as a pedestrian recommendation. This project will install curb, gutter, and sidewalks along Ackerman Road, and with those improvements can be considered consistent with the transportation plan. And the site is not designated as a parkland search area, and there is no proposed greenway corridor, so this project can be considered consistent with the Parks and Recs, Greenways, and Cultural Resources Plan. This project went to public hearing in December of last year. Previously, they had proposed townhouse units in the northern section of the development, and so there were comments provided based on that version of the plan. That's also why it took so long for the plan to come back to you, because the applicant revised to include only single-family dwelling units. There were questions about the open space calculations and what spaces qualify, the building locations and distance from the right-of-way, the proposed density, and the buffered stream. Mr. Dellinger specifically made a comment for Planning Commission that he was concerned about setting a precedent for that type of density for infill development in that area. And there were comments from the public regarding opposition to the townhouses, which were previously proposed, density, protection of the creek, connection to stub streets, and site distance and limited visibility along Ackerman Road. So the council voted on a vote of 4-1 to recommend to you for review. We'll go back to the council one more time for final determination of reasonableness. So here is the updated consistency statement. This request to rezone approximately 7.57 acres at the time of the request was single-family residential R40, now RA, to single-family residential R9, C255 conditional for the development of single-family detached homes is consistent with the town of Garner's adopted plans, including the future land use maps designation of medium density residential. And so we recommend that you review the plan and recommend to council for their consideration for approval. And there is a recommended motion in your book. And then I included the plan and then also the previous version of the plan here so that you all had some context. They were proposing about, I think, 20 to 21 townhouses in that northern section. And now they are proposing all single family. Applicant is.
All right, thank you very much. Before we get to the applicant, any questions for staff?
I have a lot of questions related to stormwater, but I think they best be asked of the developer.
Okay, that's fine. I did have one question, Ashley, if you could help just provide a little context maybe. With this being rezoned to R9 or proposed to be rezoned to R9, how does that compare to the adjacent development? I know that's all been sort of changed with the new DO to R4 and such, but is that comparable? Is it denser? Is it less dense?
I think it allows for more density, but the actual what they're proposing is about comparable. So the 21 and the condition to limit it to 21 makes it about the same.
Thank you.
Both adjacent developments. Bingham Station was an early version of the planned residential district back in the day. And then, of course, Ridgemore, a more recent version of the planned residential district. But if not very close to the same, somewhere, I think, actually in between the two.
Okay.
Is that assuming the square footage or an acreage of the stream that's not being built is taken out of that 7.57 acres to account for that R9?
No, it's the total tract, so
Total
including
tract.
that. Yeah.
Looking at the map, it looks like the lot sizes are comparable to adjacent, but I just wanted to confirm. All right, we will move on to the developer. And please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I will. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is Peter Connaughton. I work with Jones and Connaughton Engineering, 221 North Salem Street in Apex. We are the consultant engineer for Construction Masters on this project. First of all, I do want to say thank you to Ashley, Jeff, and all the really members of the town of Garner for their help. I mean, we've been working on this development in this process for a better part of a year. So, but anyway, we started out, as Ashley mentioned, with a more dense development with townhomes fronting on Ackerman Road with single family to the south. Through their advice, and we've decided to remove the high density with townhomes and just go single family. And we appreciate that in terms of moving that forward to this point. There is a creek that's shown on the master plan that basically bisects the property from a northern and a southern section. The northern section, we are proposing a public street with a hammerhead for turnaround with 7 single-family lots. We will be improving Ackerman Road to half of a 3-lane section with curb and gutter and sidewalk. We believe that's a positive improvement. As far as to the south, we'll be connecting Bingham Station to Ridgemore with the connection of Steam Engine Way to the west and Hazy Hills Lane to the east to provide that connection between those two communities. So with this development of 20 lots, we believe it's a good fit sandwiched between 2 existing developments. Today I did look at Bingham Station. Basically, a lot of the lot sizes adjacent to this property are in the 5,000 to 7,000. There are some bigger properties around the cul-de-sac, but that's in general a 5,000 to 7,000 square foot range. And in Ridgemore, they're around the 7,000 to 9,000 square foot range lots. So with an R9, 9,000 minimum square foot, we're comparable to the existing neighborhoods to the east and to the west, and believe it's a good fit. I do want to let you know we did have multiple neighborhood meetings. The neighbors basically to the south on Steam Engine Way, their primary concern was related to traffic and existing parking on Steam Engine Way and some of the difficulties that they've had to get in and out of their existing development. I believe with the extension through this development to Hazy Hills, it gives them another avenue to access Ackerman Road. So hopefully that alleviates some of those issues, and it does provide that connection that the town wants with this development. For Ackerman Road, the residents along that corridor were concerned with basically access. That Ackerman's a very heavily trafficked road from what I understand. So there was concerns about, first, the density that we were proposing. So we're hopeful that with the change to just 7 single family homes being accessed off of Ackerman, that alleviates that concern. But there was also a concern about drainage along Ackerman Road. There's an existing storm drain pipe evidently that drains onto this site, and we will be handling that existing storm drainage with connections through the public street and conveying that down either to our stormwater pond or to the existing creek as a bypass flow. So that's something that will be handled during the design of the development itself. So I believe we've addressed, hopefully, adequately to the existing neighbors and their concerns. But I believe this is a good project. It meets all conditions of the UDO, and I believe what the town would want to see for this area as basically almost looking at it as an infill between two existing communities, with a very good lot size and development being proposed. So we're appreciative of your help and allowing us to move forward. And I'm here to answer any questions, and the owner for Construction Masters is here as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We'll open up to the commission for any questions of the developer or staff.
Yeah, if I could, I'm trying to understand the stormwater flow, the flow of water. I see on this particular map, you have a high point and a low point. Low point is down by the stormwater control mechanism, correct? Is the flow of stormwater from the upper parcels, the north parcel, is that all into the creek, or is that also captured and brought to the control mechanism?
It's brought everything, all the water, I'm not going to say every drop of water, but from the existing road, or the road that is proposed off of Ackerman, that stormwater will be conveyed to the stormwater pond. On the master plan, we are proposing a pedestrian path between the two developments. That's actually an existing driveway currently. So we are going to utilize that as a means of conveying storm drain, the piping of the stormwater collection and within the northern section, and conveying that to the southern.
So what looks like a bridge
Yes.
between the two parcels is actually a conveyance to move stormwater?
We're going to use it as a conveyance as well as a pedestrian access.
Okay. Is all the hatched-in area on this map, is it all wetland?
No. We've had a delineation done of wetlands. They are pretty much confined to the stream buffer, as well as down basically to the west of where the stormwater pond is shown. A lot of that's open space and tree canopy area that's going to be saved.
So what's alongside the stream in the buffer area is not officially wetland?
No.
Legally wetland? It's not, okay. One of the things that threw me was in the bottom of this map, it says storm drainage easement. There's a couple of insets there. And on the inset, it has the storm drainage easement between lots 13 and 14. And on this map here, that's impossible. So I'm just trying to figure out what happened there.
That's an error on our part in terms of lot number.
Okay. Okay.
The lot numbers are lots 3 and 4, if I'm reading that correctly. That was just a mistake on our part to not change the lot numbers on the inset.
Okay. So the two storm drainage easements, they're just a swale that will allow water to move if needed, or are they something more firm?
It'll be piped. It won't be.
It'll be piped.
They will not be drainage swales. They will be in the streets themselves. Usually put in catch basins along the curb and gutter to catch the water. And then that water is piped between catch basins and eventually discharged to the stormwater pond. So that 20-foot storm drainage easement will allow the piping through that area.
So is there anything on the surface between those two homes, or is it all on the ground?
Well, that'll be conveying the storm drainage pipes. But usually between houses themselves, you do have some drainage swales, because you want, when the water comes off of the houses, you want that to be diverted
Gotcha.
away from the homes.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Would it be fair to say that those are access easements for maintenance and repairs if needed in the future?
It'll double as a stormwater control maintenance easement as well. They need to have access to a public right-of-way, and the easements allows that maintenance.
Mr. Bullen, does that help clarify your question?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Carson?
I've got a few questions and then just a clarification. where it's noted as High Point in that adjacent property that's not part of this request, are there any kind of surface water control measures along the backs of your proposed properties that may catch any surface water from coming further onto your proposed properties? If the High Point is up there, obviously their backyards are going to be potentially lower. So is there any kind of rear swale or any kind of would keep water from encroaching onto these new properties?
Well, those are more related to design issues, but part of what we do in the design of a development is just not the streets, but looking at the lots themselves to make sure that any runoff within the site itself, that water is conveyed between houses with drainage swales so that water can get to the roads, to where usually you have your catch basins and your storm drainage collection. If there's yard inlets that are needed, on the back of property, of lots rather, to collect water that may be in low areas, we'll certainly do that as part of the design. But yeah, in terms of we as engineers, part of our responsibility is to make sure that water is conveyed to appropriate inlet structures so that we are protecting homes, streets, and those kind of things so that not flooded out or what have you.
Next question is, there seems to be some sort of median down the middle of your northern property. What exactly is that little median? Is it something that's painted? Is it something that's colored, or what is that?
Oh, that's just a symbol for the center line, and that's giving some distances between tangent and curve points.
No.
There's no median, no,
Sidewalk,
no.
okay.
That'll be a town public street.
Okay, next question, where there's some cross hatching on your proposed roadway where it ties into Steam Engine Way, is that a proposed bridge? Or what does that hatching represent? Is that just going to be an infill and you're going to have pipe under the stream or for the stream? There's some unusual hatching where it's through the wetland, and it would appear that there's maybe some sort of structure there.
That'll be basically that's going to be a fill section across the creek itself. There'll need to be a conveyance to carry the flow of the creek from the high point to the low point, so there'll be a fill to build the road itself.
You'll have a
That's really all
box
that's
culvert or pipe or something.
right, exactly.
One other question, on the southern portion, you have a mail kiosk. I don't see anything noted up on the northern, or does the density up there just not permit?
There's a mail kiosk. It's kind of shown right there. Is that, Ashley, are you doing that? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the hammerhead at the northern portion.
Oh, okay. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes.
And just on the, this might be a town question, but I'll pose it to you. On the Garner Transportation Plan, the town plan calls for the sidewalks along Ackerman as a recommendation. And it states this project will install curb, gutter, and sidewalks. Is that specifically addressing Ackerman Road? Because it says this project will install curb, gutter, and sidewalks. That could be on your project site. But I guess the question is, are they also installing that on Ackerman Road to address the transportation plan?
I can answer.
So I just want to clarify
So the
that.
ultimate section of Ackerman Road would include curb, gutter, and sidewalk, so they would have to do that. It might be up to engineering if it would be fee in lieu or if they'll build it based on their frontage, but it's part of the ultimate section, so they would be responsible.
Okay. That's all.
I'll just say it's our intent to install the sidewalk along with the curb and gutter and improve the frontage per the town standard for the road of Ackerman ultimate section, yes.
That's all the questions I had at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Phillips, do you have anything? All right, Ms. Ava?
I don't have any questions at this time, but I did just want to compliment you on your efforts to address some of the resident questions. I did read the minutes and the notes from the neighborhood meetings that were held, and I think it's very important to address concerns of existing residents. And so, thank you for doing that.
Thank you for that. Hopefully we did a good job.
I think we'll find out soon.
I think we'll find out too.
Mr. Jefferson? Any questions, comments?
I do. I do have a range. And I think the stormwater questions, I had very similar stormwater questions, but well, they've been answered. I still have probably some concerns on that northern section. Still not fully sure how all of that is being captured in that system to carry over the stream into the stormwater southwest.
Well, the only thing I could clarify, hopefully clarify, is that the storm drainage will be part of the design of the road itself. So we'll be collecting as much water in the road itself and capturing it within catch basins. We're going to bring it all the way down to where that pedestrian crossing is, and it's our intent to use it to pipe that water across there to Hazy Hills Lane. Now, those are some design issues that are going to have to get worked out in design. At worst case scenario, we have to meet the town ordinance for stormwater controls, and if a secondary structure is required to the north, then that'll have to be done at that time. It's not our intent to do that, but we'll be meeting the ordinance.
And you think that would be mostly gravity fed, that movement of, based on slope of that drainage?
Yes, it'll all be gravity drainage, yes.
I have a few questions about the design kind of guidelines in your proposal. Any reason that we don't use 12-inch overhangs on the roof lines, on our eaves? So it's 8-inch. Is there any reason why it wouldn't be larger?
I'm not one. I'll have to defer to the builder there. I'm not a builder, so that gets out of my expertise, and I don't want to overstep bounds that are beyond my expertise.
Okay, what?
But the owner is here. He's a builder, and he could address that with you.
Perhaps that may be what I'll address that. I bring that up only because of shade calculation on the buildings to really provide better shade on that upper section of the building form. 8-inch overhangs really don't do a lot to help reduce some of the heat gain in the building, especially in the attic surfaces. So as we look at some of the character of our existing neighborhoods in Garner, especially our older neighborhoods, there are longer overhangs. They sometimes range 16 inches. So when we think about character of the existing neighborhoods and communities, and also the efficiency of shade and shade capture on this.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. Did you want to respond? If you would mind,
Sure.
State your name and address for the record, please, and then, sorry.
My name is Mohammed El Fadali. I'm the owner of Construction Masters. I live at 508 Stone Creek Drive in Apex. At the time when we did the architecture conditions, we asked the staff for recommendations, and I believe that's why we used the 8 inches that was part of the recommendation, and we're absolutely agreeing. If you want to increase it to 12, we can adjust that in the conditions and have it as 12 inches.
Okay, well, thanks for that.
Thank you so much.
And this question is about orientation of the building footprints. So, well, actually, I have one question before I go to that. The number 13 says that no more than 21 single-family homes will be constructed. But am I counting right that there are only 20?
Correct, yeah.
So should that say 20? Or is there another proposed number 1 that makes 21 that would show up on the site at some point?
I personally don't think you're going to be able to fit another,
I don't
a
either.
lot on this. I think it's, you always like to have more, well, for lack of better words, you like to have more, and then come down from there at less, rather than go in the opposite way. So I don't think there would be a problem to changing that to a maximum of 20.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was not.
But yes, we are only showing on our master plan 20 units, yes.
And I do appreciate that we've looked at the, the change from the original, from town, single family. I do appreciate that. Okay, so the orientation of the units, there are a good number of the units on the south portion where one side of the house faces mostly south. And in number 12, the condition that units shall have at least one trimmed window per habitable floor on the side elevation, and window trim shall be a minimum of a 1x4 board. So I also noticed that the thought behind the material for the buildings was mostly masonry unless it's not. That's basically what it said. Like that you would try to be mostly masonry or brick, I'm assuming. And then unless there is a use of more cement siding. So number 4, if masonry is not the predominant single family first floor finish, then 50%, greater than 50%, then the front elevation shall have 2 types of fiber cement sidings. So on that note that the trim for windows are on the sides, I'm assuming that there are also trim on the front elevations where there is no masonry. Is that to be assumed?
I think so, yeah.
I would expect that, yes.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure because it lists this here on the side, but it doesn't say anything about it on the front of the elevation. So I want to make sure that's the case. So a lot of the orientation of the footprints of the buildings, well, not, some are facing a little more south. So that means that, that minimum of one window on that one south facing side of the few units that do face south, you really, really reduce the natural sunlight in those units from the side. And we already are pretty close as it is. And so I would definitely suggest, I can't tell you how to design, but to try to give your residents in those units more natural light in their spaces. It helps with energy efficiency without having to use artificial lighting throughout the day. And again, whatever amount of natural light that can come into those openings on the east and on the west, since they don't really all have a full open south side, is, I think, important. The existing neighborhood to the west, those units really run north-south, 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 mostly except for along the cul-de-sac and the curve. So you have a good kind of front north-south, north-south, where you have a full exposure of a south side at some point, and enough kind of distance from the other units to get natural light. So I think that's really important, especially now where we are. I mean, prices of everything seems to be going up, and with the cost of the houses here, which I'm not sure yet, I haven't asked that question. I think it's important to be as energy efficient with shade calculation, with openings in our walls, and also you have a unit adjacent to you and you stare at a large wall with one window on it. It seems like you're in a townhouse, but you're not. So that's mostly about natural light and orientation. And I know the site is not the easiest site to orient your buildings, and based on your setbacks that you propose. So if we could, think about how that improves the natural sunlight in those units for your residents, I think it would be really helpful, and it'll make them want to continue to be there, I hope. So I want to just make that note. Orientation, I think, is really important. The same is true for the north section. Most of the Let's see, the three at the very north of the north site, they face south, but because we have two buildings really side by side, there's only one of those southern facing walls that really have more of an exposure to natural light from the south. And then you have the east-west orientation. Well, you'll get more morning sun in the front and then afternoon sun in the evening, actually, a little less afternoon sun. So I really, you know, if you could think about the orientation of those units, if it is meeting the needs of the residents and getting enough natural light in those spaces, you know, natural light doesn't just help us energy efficiency wise, it also helps mental capacity, being in spaces that have natural light throughout the day. And I think that's really important. And if you look at the character of some of our older neighborhoods, like a lot of them are really oriented really well to capture really good natural light throughout the day. I mean, my house is 1965 and I can leave the lights off all day until nightfall, and I love it, you know, but it does something to you mentally as well, right? So that's something I'd like to, it's a statement, and however you can adjust that in your guidelines, I think it would be really helpful for your residents.
It's a statement, and I appreciate your comments. I mean, and it's something I'm sure they will introduce at where they can to energy efficiency, whether it be appliances or materials or window treat where they're placing. You know, those are all important comments. So thank you.
They are. To me, natural light hits first, and then materials hit second. In that case, I think that was on this. Okay, so so stormwater questions were stormwater questions. All right, the 20-foot rear setback on lots in the south section. That's on the screen. It is on the south section. I guess on my diagram, I thought it looked a little bit different. Lots 1 and 2. I'm assuming that setback that is being shown, that is a 20-foot setback to the buffer. Is that right?
To the start of the stream buffer.
To the start of the stream buffer.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That little square box in green behind basically the tan color is your setback.
Okay. So those two units, those two lots, outside of lots 10 through, or 3 through 10, maybe half of lot 2. Lot 1 doesn't have any additional site besides what is in the buffer behind it, right? That
They don't have any
no additional
yard within the lot itself, but it will have a nice buffer that is it's not really part of the lot, but it certainly is. It's almost like tree save area, for lack of a better word.
And that's supposed to mostly be wooded and maintained as, right? Except for where the road would cross over, and there's some removal of trees and apparently some fill and.
Yeah, the stream buffer cannot be disturbed other than for utility or street crossings. Yes.
Street crossing.
Yes. Right. And we are only proposing the one on Steam Engine Way.
So in that southwest section where your stormwater capture device is, that from what I reviewed in my research is flood prone. How much of lot 3 and 4 do you think is impacted by any of the flood prone soil in that part of the site?
Honestly, I'd have to look at the soils map again. Okay. I'm not really prepared to answer that statement. I know that the construction itself of the stormwater pond will meet, all the standards of the Department of Environmental Quality. We have to meet their stormwater guideline for design, as well as the towns.
Okay, so this question I have, and this is probably really a question, not really a statement. Your open space. So the anticipated 11.1% open space, or 0.84 acres that is being proposed. Part of that is, of course, maintained by the HOA, but it says required open space will be met by qualifying conservation areas. So the conservation areas are considered part of your open space.
We're utilizing, most of the stream buffer as our open space area.
Okay, and then there's a passive recreation pockets that are located near the walkways and mail kiosks.
Yes, I mean, the pedestrian path itself, that's part of the passive requirement. That is the connection between the northern street as well as Hazy Hills.
Along the street,
It's
sidewalk,
between
walkway.
lot numbers 12 and 13. There's a pedestrian path that's connecting the northern to the southern public streets.
and so that would be considered passive recreation.
Yes, that's what we're utilizing. That's part of it, yes. And part of the passive is also just the preservation of that area.
There won't be much recreation happening in that space very much. Do you think between those two lots? Seems like it's right up against the property of lot 12. Do you think? Or perhaps my question should be, what do you describe or define as passive recreation? Like what type of activities occur in passive recreation pockets for the residents?
Passive to me are things like preservation of open space areas and natural vegetation with maybe you would have benches or a walkway, something that people can enjoy, views and aesthetic views and those kind of things. So the path is just a means of not just connection, but it provides walkable community. You're going to have access from this community from north to south all the way out to Ackerman Road with sidewalk and this pedestrian connection. So passive to me is walkability.
Walkability. And then the existing conservation area is mostly going to be wooded still along the stream. Is it accessible at all by the residents? I mean, can they?
So if you'll recall, I think this is the crux of what you may be getting to, Mr. Jefferson, is when we did the rewrite of the new ordinance, we admitted that there was a long-standing issue of being able to, under the old ordinance, a lot of lots were able to meet their open space requirement strictly with preservation areas.
Right.
So we put a cap on that in the new ordinance. So this one being under the old ordinance, if it's all preservation, it can be all preservation.
That's where my question was
yeah.
going. And that's why I asked the question, what is considered passive recreation?
Right.
And I would just rather, there's just very few spots that I consider would be a recreation space. So if it's all conservation area that is considered most of your open space, then it's just all conservation area. I don't, you think of those 20 houses and, I don't know how many people are going to live in these houses. How many bedrooms do you think these all have? 3 bedrooms, 2, 3?
Probably three.
Probably 3. So some kids, and maybe where do they kind of recreate is my question. That's all. And, the neighborhoods that probably already exist, I don't know where their families or people or where you all recreate. Maybe it's in the yards, but that's just the question that I have. I just want to make sure that if this moves forward, that that the recreation doesn't have to happen in some other part of the neighborhood, that there's a space that's really considered their recreation area. Not that you can't go east or west, but I have a little bit of concern. But I understand this is under the old ordinance. But wherever that could be opened in your area, it would be very, I think, helpful for your residents.
Oh,
It's a tight lot, it's a tight site with the conservation area,
Well, there's a lot of area in the development as a whole that's unusable. You got a lot of stream buffer that comes with this parcel. So, I mean, our whole approach was not just preservation, but providing, like I said, there's that pedestrian path is an existing driveway. So we're trying to utilize that, like I said, to provide walkability, throughout the development to get to access points, Ackerman Road, connecting the sidewalk within Steam Engine Way and Hazy Hills, and gives people walkable community. So that's really the idea and the concept behind the passive space.
And I, if that is the goal, to be able to make that happen, I totally understand that. And so I really appreciate that. That's the kind of, if the walkability of that is what we want to try to focus on,
Right.
then that helps me to see that, okay, well, this isn't what's really the precipice for open space here, but the open space, the caveat is that we're trying to move people throughout the site as best you can with the existing conditions. And so I do appreciate that. I do want to just make sure that, those 20 units have spaces, for their families to be able to recreate as best possible without manipulating the existing conservation area. I think I will stop and let Mr. Blass go. Thanks for your.
Thank you.
I just had a couple questions. Am I to assume that we are not, or the town's not requiring road improvements on Ackerman in front of the adjacent property? Or are we asking for
Yeah,
that?
we don't have any ability to require it. No.
Something for the town to think about. I think that's going to be a weird gap that may exist for a long time given that parcel. So if there's anything we can do to address that, whether through this process or another process, that would be. The way that this development is laid out, I think if it just, I'm not sure if that other property would ever redevelop as anything other than what it already is, given connectivity and size and et cetera. So,
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there does appear to be some additional right-of-way that's required. So unless that owner were to voluntarily dedicate that, it might not be practically possible either.
I guess I would just recommend that.
But we can check it.
Yeah, check it out, and maybe it's a project on a future sidewalk and road improvement. I mean, even the sidewalk alone, just making that connection would be, even without the roadway widening, would be.
Right. And quite often to put the sidewalk in, you've got to do the curb gutter.
Yeah.
So that might be very well one of those projects that could be finished by addressing the sidewalk part and kind of bringing the road with it.
Okay, great. The only other comment I had, I think, I would just like to see as you go into your design process that you try to limit your mass grading as much as possible and protect some of those edges around the perimeter for buffers, even though they're not required, especially up against the Ridgemore side. It looks like there's already a buffer on Ridgemore, but if you're able to add on to that and make it a little bit more of a green corridor or protect some additional trees would be appreciated.
We'll certainly consider that as most developments you want to clear and grade as little as possible. So
Yeah, and I think
we will
just
certainly do that.
Yeah, I also think just in terms of mass grading, as much as we can limit it and reduce, I don't know how the topography is, but there are some developments around where there's 3-to-1, 4-to-1 slopes in between homes because they're all slab on grade and terraced. And if we can avoid those situations, that would be ideal.
Thank you.
That was all the questions, comments I had. With that, I will open it up to,
John, one more.
sorry.
One more. And this is perhaps for the owner. Will this entire development, parcel 1, parcel 2, have a single name?
It's like the owner stepped out for a moment.
And the re-
I certainly believe it will.
well,
I
this is why I ask. You can get into parcel 1 through Ackerman Road, and you can get into parcel 3 through Hazy Hill Lane, but you can't travel between
right.
in a car. So that's going to lead to a lot of confusion when someone says, I live at this so-and-so development or subdivision, and there's confusion right away if they want to drive there. So I was just curious how the marketing will take place to differentiate, if at all.
That's a valid comment. Something that he's going to have to think through. I don't know whether he has. We haven't had that discussion, but certainly we will.
All right, thank you.
I do have one last.
Okay.
You know how I hate Are there and is there any wildlife in that stream? Is that stream fully active all the time, or is it just active when it is a strong rain or raining? Or do you know if there's any? Are there, minnows or fish or wildlife in that stream
That I do not know. If most of the times, I wish the owner was here. A lot of times, there's usually when they buy a property, there's what they call a phase 1 environmental site assessment that's done as far as the development.
I think he's stepping back
And some
in.
of those things are addressed in those type of reports, but I'm not aware of that.
Like he's,
maybe the owner has an answer to that? I'm sorry, my while you said that, I'm so sorry. My question was actually kind of had two questions that were kind of for you as well, but maybe Mr. Volin asked.
Yeah, my question was, parcel 1 and parcel 2, will they have similar marking, similar logo, similar name, or will they be differentiate because they are not connected by car?
No,
North and south.
it should be the same sign.
You're planning on a single name,
Yes.
same sign, but one accessible through Hazy Hill Lane and the other accessible through Ackerman Road.
Yes, because the creek kind of divides.
I know that. I'm just thinking about the driving and address and directional confusion. That's all.
We're willing to do 2 different names if that's what's being requested.
I'm just raising point.
Sure.
We can I was going to say, we can certainly talk about that as we get to the subdivision plan level. I've seen some subdivisions where they do it like Eagle Ridge Crest and Eagle Ridge View,
Okay.
but there's,
Or either north and a
Or
south.
north and south,
or one
yeah.
and a 2 and.
Okay.
And my last question was, do you know if there's any wildlife in that stream?
I believe we had site determination with the Department of Water Quality. I attended the inspection with 2 of the Department of Water Quality who performed the inspection. I believe we saw a fish really toward the south over there, and there's a report that they generated at the time. So to my recollection, I believe there was a fish at the south side of the land over there near the proposed storm water. And other than that, it was just they tested the hydraulics, the depths of the stream, a lot of things that I might not be knowledgeable of, but they had a full checklist at that time, and they generated a report at that time.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate that, yeah.
I just want to add this one thing. When we do the extension of Steam Engine Way, of course, we got to fill across the stream buffer, and we'll be putting in a storm drain pipe culvert. Part of what we usually do is embed the pipe of the storm drainage, maybe 6 to 8 inches in the stream bed, so it does allow for movement of aquatic life from high to low or low to high within the stream. So that's part of what we do as part of the development design, is embed the pipe to allow that transfer of or movement of aquatic.
Okay,
Life.
that's great. That
So
was, and
just-
that was the,
Just something to,
yeah, one of the
let
one of
you
the
know.
purposes of that question.
Yeah.
That anything we do there, to do as much as you can to preserve that aquatic life, that wildlife that exists in that stream, is
Right.
part of our environment.
Right.
And it's part of our protection. And so however you, and I understand you gotta cross it some way. So I can't say, don't do it, don't do this. You kind of have to cross it in some way. But the best way to help alleviate losing that natural habitat would be really appreciated. Yeah,
thank you.
I'm done.
All right, thank you all. With that, is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak in favor of the project? Seeing none, is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak in opposition of the project? Please state your name and address for the record, and just as a reminder, if there are multiples who want to speak, we try to keep it to 10 minutes and not repetitive.
Fortunately, my neighbor Ed and Charity Jones are here. We live right next to each other. I'll try to respect that. My name is John Allman, my wife Tammy. We live right across from this area on Ackerman Road at 1931 Ackerman. We've been there for 23 years. Been Garner residents going on 3 decades. I don't feel like I'm speaking in opposition so much as raising concerns for you guys. I want to point that out, and I do have some notes for the developers. As homeowners that could be, we've had a lot of new developments in our areas. In 23 years, we've had a lot of new friends. We've seen some wise and unwise changes, and we're generally very grateful for the direction that it's taken. But as homeowners that could be dramatically affected by this, we're here to urge the commission, the staff, to fully scrutinize this rezoning request and the development plan. I am understanding the process a little bit more, so please forgive me if I talk a little bit about a development and some of it about zoning, but they are general concerns that would naturally come up a little bit later. We have many concerns, relating to the kind of what we see as kind of a radical change in the zoning. And I'm going into detail on these, brief detail. It's lowlands where stormwater currently drains under Ackerman Road and onto the 1932 property before where it currently flows into the protected stream and buffer that is on your map. We're also concerned about losing a lot of old growth trees that were on this property for, nothing's been cut on that road, at least 50, 60 years looking at the tree growth here. And so these trees also dispose of a great deal of stormwater runoff while providing wildlife habitats and beauty for the neighborhood. And I will answer your question. I can't speak as to fish. I can speak that stream's always got water in it, nearly always. I don't know about a rare case of drought. We have deer, possums, raccoons, fox, an array of things that are living and around this area. So I would imagine that is habitat to a great deal of wildlife, as it extends this way and that way too, not just on the property. And we're concerned about the danger posed by a lot of additional construction and homeowner vehicles entering and exiting Ackerman Road at 1932. This property, its frontage is the definition of a blind or hidden driveway, which I will explain in just a moment. First, the developer I know is no longer trying to squeeze the 24 townhomes into the northern portion, and we are very thankful for that. I must still say that it seems to us like we're jumping from R40 to R9, skipping over R20, R15, and R12 in the process. They're naturally, so they've kind of moved and requested under the old plan the most dense of single-family zoning designations. So under the old plan, which it's being considered by. Now, naturally, they're trying to maximize homeowners, not entirely, because I see that you've dropped a house. We had 21, now we've got 20. So I totally recognize the steps that you're taking. Also a little bit concerned that the stream and the buffer also appears to be calculated into, so it's in the denominator of so many statistics here. Recreation space, permeable surfaces, and others that the staff are going to know really well and that I do not know. But it does seem like they're getting a lot of credit for all of this land. I know you can't use it, but should it really be figured into the percentage of land that is this, or the square foot, you know, the acreage of a single lot and things of that nature? I'll leave that for you guys. I would like to describe the topography of 1932 Ackerman Road and the road in front of it. Those not local to the neighborhood would not know about the hill dip that is directly in front of this property. The former owners, Joe and Carolyn Pleasance, when they welcomed us to the neighborhood, they described it as risking their life every time they pull out of their driveway. Because it is a blind drive. There is a hill there, and we've increasingly felt the same with more and more traffic on Ackerman Road in our 23 years. For non-residents, when you turn on Ackerman coming from the east on your map, you are going to be, and you're heading westward, you are going completely downhill. It seems like you're just going downhill forever until you reach the eastern property line that's shown right there at Ackerman Road for 1932 Ackerman. That is what we would consider the dip, or the lowest point of this dip hill before it goes down. The road then rises from this dip, I would say for a couple hundred feet or something like that, I've not measured it, to the hill's crest. And the hill's crest is approximately at the Bingham Station property line that you can see there. You can see the eastern edge of Bingham Station, and that's really the crest of the hill right there. So any vehicles that are heading in the other direction, eastward on Ackerman, have no sight line at all on any of our driveways. I stop, I roll down my windows, cut the radio off, and listen. That's the only way to safely exit here. And any proposed driveway, even though the proposed driveway here is a lot different than where Joe and Carolyn had it, which was closer to the crest of the hill. So that does provide a little bit more, a few hundred feet or something. But, you know, we're concerned that we're going to have 7 to 14 additional vehicles that are going to be using this blind spot twice per day. Moreover, if a vehicle slows or stops over the crest, after the crest of that hill, no approaching cars coming behind it are going to be able to see them until they're upon them. The road is also narrow with almost no shoulder whatsoever along the frontage there, and also on the other side, which is our property. This is just the worst kind of location for a driveway, so we ask that you please factor that into the number of homes you choose to allow on the northernmost portion of the property, or perhaps if you're against that, there was at one time an alternative the developer was considering, and that was to have no access on Ackerman and everything come through the other streets there and connecting it. I understand that, you know, they don't want to cross the buffer too much. There is the existing driveway they're going to turn into a footpath, so that's already crossing it. It's not causing any harm, I guess, to leave it there. But now we are creating an extra one tying over to Steam Engine Way. So as a result of this topography, there is a substantial amount of stormwater runoff that accumulates in that dip. It's actually on Ed and Charity's side, and it goes right along the edge of our two properties. It goes under Ackerman Road through a pipe and then exits out to 1932 Ackerman Road along the eastern edge right there, as I believe that Peter had spoke about as well. This is gushing with water after any rains. Let's see, it goes through there, and you can also see it, forgive me, you can also see it on Garner's flood map. I know you can't see that too well, but this is the one that I'm speaking about right here. Now, I understand, and I'm sure many will point out to me, that the flood map is not up to date. However, I can assure you, with, you know, having lived there, I can tell you and I can show you pictures that it is completely filled with water that flows. It kind of, the stream kind of meanders a little bit, but it generally follows what they have proposed there to be the driveway. And then, as I said, currently it flows into the protected stream there. This was taken, this is a December photo. I should also point out that I don't know what they're calling it now, lot 20, lot 19, possibly the next one, but certainly the first two houses there. If that land is not filled in, it's all marshland. It's all filled with, this is the stream, but this is still, this is still very, very low lands right here where those first two homes are. So, drainage is a very, very big concern for us. This was the amount of water after we hadn't had rains for a week. We had the December town council meeting. We had a rain. I snapped the picture the next day. Same thing happened after a February developers meeting that we had. Took this picture in February, exactly kind of the same thing. So it is always filled after we have a significant rainfall, a one day significant rainfall. So drainage must be a huge consideration in your review and a top priority at the start of any of the construction. I must add that I've not been that optimistic up until today's meeting when I heard you address it. I did write this before I heard you speak, all right? But, when we had a meeting in January, February, these guys were not aware that there was a drainage pipe there at all whatsoever. And I would have thought that that would have been, we have to deal with this, even in our initial designs. I had also heard, and I'd asked that the low-lying areas, like I talked about those first three lots closest to Ackerman, they're so low-lying and they flood so easily that there must be some fill dirt plans to go in there. And I think the reaction was that they didn't think that they would be needing it. So lastly, construction at this site, to the extent that trucks and equipment enter from Ackerman Road, and ultimately some are going to have to, is a major concern both due to the blind spot and the lack of shoulder on the road that I discussed. I should point out that there are no sidewalks adjacent to the property, not until you get to Bingham Station, and nothing on the southern side at all, way on up the road. So when I've heard talk about sidewalk, I'm not really sure what it would connect to, and I'm not sure. They had talked to me about maybe doing a sidewalk on our property, but that's for a future consideration. We also wonder a little bit about the timeline for construction. Just want to make sure that noise and disruptions don't extend for a usually longer time period. I understand the owner's going to be developing with himself. That naturally means a smaller crew. Don't want it to just go on forever. So summing up, it's our hope the commission will scrutinize the plans here, both the rezoning request and the development, to address these concerns. This property has had one home surrounded by nature, natural resources flowing through it. We just ask that you don't allow shoehorning of dense housing into, one of the worst locations for a great deal of people to be getting on and off of the road, which would affect many existing homeowners, pedestrians, and drivers. So, one other point I should mention before leaving, that both the December meeting of the town council as well as the January meeting the developers had, there was no less than 10 local residents there. I believe you had listed 4 or something. So I thank you very much.
And I appreciate it. Anyone else wish to speak? All right. I do appreciate all your concerns. I think many of them, all of them are valid. I will assure you that I have complete faith in our town engineer and town planners that they will look at storm drainage and make sure that it does meet state requirements at a minimum. With the goal that, the requirement really that post-development flow and drainage must be better than pre-development. So, right. Yep. So, thank you. I did have similar concerns about that road. I do live in this area, have run on this road many a times, and I'm not sure what you can do about it. With that being a 3-lane section, I'm assuming the middle lane will be a center turn lane, or or is it more geared towards the turn lane of sorts?
I mean, I think it is. Yeah, in the long term, it's kind of one of those continuous left turn lanes. Yeah.
Just with regard to Ackerman, just want to just clarify this one thing, and that is, not only does it need to meet the town standard, we got to meet NCDOT standard. This is going to go through a driveway permit process. This is going to go through an encroachment agreement process where DOT will come out here and look at our location for access and verify that it meets safety and sight distance and those kind of things. I fully expect not only will be improving with curb and gutter along the frontage, but we'll be having to provide left turn lanes and tapers into the development. So that we're hopeful that increases safety issues that may be of concern.
Absolutely.
So we do need to go through that process. So I just wanted to let you know that.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. And I think just to reiterate the concern about the vegetation is just, the amount you can protect, the more the better. The buffers, especially, the perimeter being the easiest of those, but wherever you can. So often we see open spaces on plans that are just graded just to be graded and not left natural. So anything that you can do to help protect, like I see there's that little green space between lot 13 and the road, if that can be somehow left vegetated, after you're grading, and those, look for those opportunities to sort of increase your tree coverage.
And a definite advantage with a project this size, you don't have multiple streets backing up to each other. And that's always where we see it difficult to try to work with folks to preserve trees in the backyards. The fact that there's just really one front yard and then there's nothing else past the houses. There's really no reason to grade any further than what you need to for the house. So we could work with the applicant to try to craft something that would maybe convey that intent.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So that we have something to discuss, do we have a motion on the table?
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll move that the Planning Commission accept the consistency statement detailed in Section 6 of this report as their own written recommendation regarding the consistency of the request with the town's adopted land use plans, and recommend approval of CZMP 2206 to the Town Council.
Second that.
Jefferson, did you mention earlier that you may have had an amendment or something that you were interested in, the eaves?
I did. I do believe that it would be, important to try and maintain as close to a 12-inch overhang or more as you can for shade in that. And if that's, able to be done, that would be wonderful.
We do have their verbal.
Is that a request or is
Yeah.
that an amendment to the recommendation?
Depending on how Mr. Friesenberg wants to see it.
Oh, well, we have the applicant's verbal commitment to that. So to me, that's on the table. That's something that will be adjusted before it goes back to council.
Make sure that it was
Yeah.
accounted for.
Okay.
All right, any discussion on the motion to approve? I would just say I appreciate Mr. Driesenberg's commitment to help work with the developer to address some of the concerns of the neighbors and make it address some of those issues that have been brought up and keep this moving forward as a better project. That, I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay. The motion is to accept the consistency and recommend for approval. Gina Avent? Aye. John Blasco?
Aye.
Ralph Carson?
Aye.
Philip Jefferson?
Aye.
Sherry Phillips?
Aye.
And Michael Boylan.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. And I do believe those concerns will be addressed through the detailed design process and review process. Thank you for your time. At that point, it's all in the planning and engineering's hands.
Yes.
There will be one more hearing before the council so that they
Or
will plan on the
one
adoption.
more meeting for adoption. Yep. Right. Yeah.
But that'll still be a rezoning meeting. It's not the
Right.
it's not the detailed site development.
Right.
So
But feel free to either reach out to myself or any of my staff members or the town engineer, and we'll be glad to keep you informed as we go along.
And please do that.
Yep.
Like, really do that. So that you can see that it's actually managing itself in the way that would help you all.
I just want one more statement. I will say it right here in front of everybody that I will work with the neighbors who are here to keep them up to date and informed of all through the design process if they wish to be. I'll make that commitment right here publicly.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
All right. With that, moving on to report from the planning director.
Oh gosh. Let's see. What do I have to report on? I did not prepare like I should normally do for this one. That being said, I don't know that there's been anything at council recently back for their final vote in the last month that's come out of here. So a couple things though that I did have from notes previously today. Clue adoption, we're looking at the meeting on November 6th. That meeting is going to be on Monday night as opposed to their normal Tuesday, which happens to be election day. So that meeting will be on that Monday. If any of you would like to show up and speak in support of adoption, I would certainly invite that. We have gotten all of kind of the final edits and amendments to the consulting team. We're going to have that published and available out on the Garner Forward website for folks at least 2 weeks in advance of that meeting. So our hope really is to get that adopted and on the books. So, again, you all put in some good work and effort and contributions to that. And I think you all unanimously endorsed it. So if you do feel inclined to show up and just give it a final, here we go, that would be great. Let's see. Then just an update staffing wise. Mr. Bamford is now officially retired. And I do hope to go visit him sometime this week. And if I am able to, I will certainly pass along the news and certainly will convey all the good wishes that folks have sent his way. And it has given us an opportunity, though, to just kind of not do anything major with our departmental structure. But, each person has a certain set of skills and things that they excel at. And the next person might be a little different, or we might want to track maybe a little bit of a difference. So we are going through kind of a review with the HR department just to kind of see if we can tweak some things, maybe try and solve our transportation planning since we're having so much trouble finding people to fill that particular niche. So we'll see how that goes. And let's see. Oh, and I did want to introduce to you tonight this gentleman sitting out here, Mr. David Talbert. He is our new assistant town engineer. So we're very excited to have him on board. David, did you want to say anything? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so David Talbert. Worked in a lot of DOT work, and varieties. Variety of background, but I'm excited to be here.
Great. Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
I understand he has been tasked by Leah to be kind of engineering's official representative here to the Planning Commission. So you will be seeing him more. So yeah, I think that's all that I have at the moment. We will not be using that extra meeting this month that I had talked to you about. The schedule seems to be working itself out. but November and December meetings will be likely decent. So just to prepare you for that.
Sounds good. All right. Any questions or comments from the commission, including Mr. Voiland's VA hospital update? Or VA center?
3 words, onward and upward. It is just exploding in terms of how fast it's going this direction. So if you've driven by, you've seen it. It's amazing. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Jeff, if you would, again, just pass along to Mr. Bamford all our prayers to him and his family. And thank you for his service to the town and
Yeah.
just pass that along.
Yeah, he's like I say, he's been with the town, had been with the town. I guess I can say that now that he's been retired, over 20 years, and a lot of folks just know him because over the years he just handled all of the oddball stuff. If there was something that was slightly different, David was the guy who took that on and got the answer. So. Yeah, we definitely miss him already, but wish him all the best here in the weeks and months ahead.
All right. Well, thank you very much. With that, we will bring this meeting to a close.